Do you really have a halo over your head right now?
Yeah, I thought you would like that.
It like I'm tempted to just not even join this conversation.
No, I just put it on just to make you laugh, and then
Oh, well done. Mission accomplished.
I was gonna take it off.
Look how cute you look.
Oh, because I just got these earrings. Okay, so this is actually all a funny story. So I just got these earrings. They were supposed to be here for New Year's, but instead, like they didn't come like in time at all. I guess they
Sure.
were shipping from England. And then when I got them, I couldn't wear them because they they arrived. They weren't connected to like the design part wasn't connected to the actual earring part, and so I was like, okay, well now I have to like glue it together, and hot glue didn't work, so I had to use like super glue. Oh well, it's fine. It works now. Okay, I'm trying to remember how to undo my halo.
You have to have the whole conversation with a halo on your head.
And then I put chapstick on, but it was the chapstick that Tara Lee gave me. I forgot that it was tinted. And so I put it on and I was just going about my day. And then I looked in the mirror and I was like, oh my gosh, what is wrong with my face? And I was like, oh yeah, it's tinted. And that's fine. It's fine. Just surprised me because I never wear lipstick.
You just blurred your background.
I did because it's really messy back there. And then if any kids come in, I don't have to worry about them running around. Yes, so no more Halo.
I hope your kids do come in.
Well, the door's locked, so they won't.
Oh.
All right.
I really enjoy your kids.
Oh yeah, you enjoy my kids? Okay.
I mean, the ones that I've met.
They're cute. They're fun.
They're hilarious.
I love them. I noticed that I kept messing with like this seat last time. I'm gonna try to not do that, but I will.
Sit still.
I will mess around too much. But what I like right now is that last time, I don't know what happened. My husband must have adjusted stuff, but like my head was super tiny. I don't know if you saw the video or not, but it was like I was so far away from the screen. And I was like, how come I'm so tiny? And like Laura is normal.
It's just because I have a big head.
And I was so far. Well, it was that I was like, it looked like I was so far away from the screen. And oh, it's fine now. It works. It's great. So let's start.
I wish we had like an intro song.
I know.
Welcome to the Low and Behold podcast. I'm Behold.
Mm-hmm. I'm low. I'm the low one.
Yeah, but not like low,
Right, but L-O.
Low. So that's a great nickname.
So yeah, I mean the reason why we came up with Lo and Behold as the, well, I say we, it's just me and I sprung it on you.
You use the we pretty liberally.
I do, yes. You decided that my nickname was Lo, and I was like, oh, well then we should be Lo and Behold. And that's where it came from.
There it is.
There it is.
It works.
So how's your week going?
Terrible, but that's all right. You know, there's bad weeks.
Yeah.
There's bad weeks.
It is true.
So yeah, I'm excited to talk about things, but I am dramatically unprepared.
That's okay.
For the internet world, I've been sick over time without me. So this last week was my last week of quarantine. You would think, nope. Okay, so I'm trying really hard not to use like negative talk about myself in this because I carry a lot of shame about what didn't get accomplished in my time in quarantine. Because you're like, oh no, I'm just like I'm home, so I will like stay on top of my Bible study and I'll do all these things. And in reality, what happened was nothing. I am now way behind in my Bible study. I haven't been doing my daily reading. And I don't even have 7 kids.
You know, there's that saying that if you want something done, give it to a busy person, because
There's momentum. You're already doing stuff.
It's
You might as well
true.
keep going.
So when I didn't have something to do, I wouldn't get anything done because I didn't have any schedule or anything. But now that I have so much to do and I have so much schedule, I find that I'm wasting a lot of time because there's just huge chunks in the day where nothing is scheduled, and
Yeah.
that drives me nuts. I
Well,
need
don't
to
look at
fill
my
it with
schedule.
something.
I was asking the sister why she was getting better so much quicker than I was. And she's like, well, I have twins. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. I'm sitting on my couch doing nothing.
Mm, mm, yeah.
So yeah, I'm excited to talk about all the questions that I actually got in advance. I actually knew we were doing a podcast today, which is different than last time.
Didn't last time.
But I like the questions, although many of them I won't be able to answer. I can answer them, honestly, but they won't lead to good discussion on my end, although I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I always have something to say, to the point where people are like, will you please stop talking? So I was like, fine, I'll make a podcast. Now you can't make me stop talking.
I've not yet thought that with you, but I mean, we've only been friends for a few months. So.
And you talk a lot too. You're like me, but in the north. So
I'm the northern.
You're the northern. Well, not northern. Like I feel like I'm northern, but northeastern. But I'm stuck in the south right now. But you are like Midwest northern version. So I wonder if there is there's probably a Laurel, probably in Portland, and we need to find her. She is we're probably a trio, and we don't even know it.
Can anything good come from Portland? This is the question.
Isn't the Bible Project in Portland?
Oh, probably.
I think so. So yes, yes. So before we get started on anything else, I want to shout out to Sidney Poitier, who died this week. So sad.
That man has range.
Right? So hold that up. I'm holding up the book that he wrote, The Measure of a Man. Wasn't he amazing? Such an amazing man. And
I'll be honest, I know very little about him outside of his acting.
I just know his acting in that book. I don't know anything else, but really surprised to be reflecting on his life this past week and thinking of what was his movie, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, and how, like, what a profound impact that had on my worldview as a child and, like, set me up for life, because it came out obviously before I was born. And I say obviously, maybe nobody knows. I was born in 1983. And so it came out before I was born. And watching it when it really wasn't that uncommon to have mixed race relations, but to see where, it was uncommon and how that bothered people for various reasons. And if I remember correctly, the wife in the story, she wasn't, or her parents weren't upset that he was black, and that's why were getting married, but her parents were upset because of all of the issues that they were going to have because they were a mixed race. So it was like a second degree racism, not like just overt racism. And I was like, wow, that's something I would never have to consider.
No.
That I would never even think about that if I, well, and I didn't. I'm like, my husband's not black, he's brown. And, but like, we've encountered a lot of racism that we dove into that relationship without thinking anything of it. Sure. And then started encountering racism. I was like, what is happening? And Felipe is like, yeah, it happens all the time. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. He was like, well, you're a white woman. So I was like, right.
Check your privilege, Lauren. Check the privilege.
Right? Yeah. Really interesting
Am I allowed to
conversations.
I
think so.
By the right,
Yeah. I mean, because a lot of it, just like my marriage has made me reflect on, oh wow, like policemen pull me over, and my biggest fear is, will I get a ticket or not?
Right.
And most of the time it's not, and it's accompanied with, I'm sorry I pulled you over. And my husband, the first time he witnessed that, he was like, did that policeman just apologize to you? And I was like, oh, they always do. Like, what else would you expect them to do? And
I
he
don't
was
think
like,
I've ever been apologized
he was like, you are driving for now on. You are always going to be driving. And I was like, okay. I thought it was because he felt I was like a better driver, but that was not it. It was because he got tired of being pulled over for no reason, wearing a hoodie. Oh, that brown man looks suspicious wearing a hoodie. Let's pull him over. And so anyway, this whole podcast is not meant to be about racism, but maybe this episode is.
How far down this rabbit hole we're gonna go. I have thoughts, but I don't know how far you want to go with it.
I don't, like, he has not had to deal with cops just randomly pulling him over since we've gotten married. So he was like, that used to be a thing. I was like, oh, okay, well, glad I can make things a little easier for you.
So, Sidney Poitier.
He is great. Yes.
Had an impact in your life enough. You know who else died? That's really sad.
Are you talking about Betty White?
Betty White.
Yes. She died
that
like 2 weeks ago. Yes. She did die. She was older than sliced bread.
She was cooler than sliced bread.
Yeah. Yeah.
She was a sassy, snarky woman.
Yes,
and I think that's what people loved about her, is just that.
Yeah.
And people are like, she's a national icon. It's because, like, she didn't take herself too seriously. So I hope that I can always have that type of attitude about life.
She was cool. Cool woman. I saw her on Community. Do you remember Community episodes with her? They were hilarious. I'm not going to go down and remember every show she was ever on.
I feel like celebrity deaths come in threes, so we should talk about a third person who died recently. John Madden.
Oh, yeah. I am not, but I do associate the name with football, so that's as far as it. Football guy.
Rip. John Madden.
I have been to football parties, and I recognize his voice, so a bit of nostalgia there. But I don't know anything about him.
All right, let's move on from dead people.
Okay, well, let's talk about some really dead people that have been dead for a really long time. How about that?
Sounds good.
Talking about Bible characters. So Jesus isn't dead. We can talk about Jesus.
I don't know that I like the word characters anymore.
Yeah, I can understand that.
I mean, I know that that's what I mean, Bible characters, but like, I feel like whenever I hear Bible characters, I'm tempted to disassociate them with reality.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but do you have a replacement word? Bible people?
Biblical figures?
Figures. I guess because we use historical figures, and those are real people.
Yeah.
So biblical figures.
The historical biblical figures. That's too many.
Historical. Yeah. I don't know. Well, I like figures though. Better than characters.
Recently with me that I've been like, oh, I don't like the word character. I don't know.
Well, okay. Here's another word that I've stopped liking over the past few years. Is just the term Christian. Because I'm like, that just seems to mean everything and anything that someone wants it to mean.
Unpack that.
Because I live in an area where everyone's a Christian, whether or not they've ever been to church, whether they own a Bible, whether they have had any personal encounter with Christ or not, they're a Christian because they were born in Texas. And I get frustrated with that because I'm like, that is just not what that word means. And we've talked about that before too, with about like Matt Chandler saying like he has to
Right.
convince people that they're not a Christian so
Not a
that then he
Christian.
can introduce them to Christ. Because this idea of who's a Christian and who's not a Christian is like not linked to Christ at all. And that's really frustrating for me.
Wait. So you don't like the term Christian because of others' definition of Christian?
Because it's been so abused that it has like no meaning. So when people go overseas and talk to people there, they're like, oh, America's a Christian nation. I'm like, hold up, what? No,
Right.
it is not. But then you even have like Christians here who are like, oh, but the founding fathers were all Christians. And I was like, would you like to review their lives and like tell me what aspect of their life was actually devoted to Christ in any regard? And I'm not saying like you can't have sin in your life and be a Christian, because obviously I have sin in my life and I'm a Christian. But it's more like that repentant attitude and turning back to Christ, and wanting to pursue a holy life, even if you're messing up, because we're all going to mess up. But that does not describe many, if any, of the founding fathers. So that's why I'm like, I don't know about that. I didn't know them personally. What's that?
Now I have Hamilton song stuck in my head.
Right.
And if I may Thomas Jefferson, I'm a compelled to include women in the sequel.
Nice.
No, yeah, I agree. I think it's interesting. I have a gal who joined my D group. My D group is all people that I know except for this one person who randomly joined, who is great. And she is our group mom. She would be like the age. She has children that's like the rest of our ages. But she's fantastic. But she was saying just that in the last 4 years, she realized that the type of Christianity she was living wasn't actually Christianity, and she fell in love with Jesus just 4 years ago.
That's
and
amazing.
So yeah, so like super cool, and has been through just a lot of stuff in life. But I think it's interesting that you can live as a Christian for a long time without realizing that you're not a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is a unique problem to have. And I think that's where I see so many people that are Christians that are scared of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, you don't need to be scared of the world. You need to be scared of this concept of Christianity that doesn't actually follow Jesus. Like, that's what you need to be scared of.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to be scared of, because like when the devil attacks, man, like he doesn't normally come at you in that way. He normally comes at you this way.
Right.
And it's like, it's not head on, it's to the side. And this, what the enemy has done with cultural Christianity in America is flabbergasting.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I actually when I was in high school, I had a leader who would not call himself a Christian. He called himself a Christ follower.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And even to this day, if someone is like, "Are you a Christian?" I always say I'm a Christ follower,
mm-hmm.
because I think even though from a definition standpoint, those two things are the same thing.
Right.
Like from a Merriam-Webster, those things would have the same definition, but culturally speaking, if you say someone is a Christ follower, culturally speaking, that's different than Christian.
Right.
So
depending on like the circumstance, like if I'm just filling out a census, I'll just check Christian. Like, it's not that it's offensive. But when we're in a personal conversation, I do try to clarify what I mean like that. I was interviewed for some article. I don't remember. It was over a year ago. And the guy doing the interview said, "Would you call yourself an evangelical?" I was like, well, depends on what you mean by that. Because there seems to be some great range in definition of that word. So let's go ahead and put definitions out there before I answer that question. And so luckily he completely understood what I meant. He was like, yes, I can see how evangelical has many meanings to different people, and
Well, it has become political,
it's
and that
become a political word, and I'm
it's
like, oh,
yeah.
well,
The side of evangelical that's political is problematic.
mm-hmm,
Um,
yeah,
Evangelical as a theological term, I think is fantastic and important.
yes, yes. So that's basically what I had to say to him before we move forward. And then he didn't even mention that in the article at all anyway. And so I was like, oh, maybe my answer was too long. I was too thorough. And he was like,
They're like,
gosh,
that was good stuff. Why would you use that?
that was the meat.
This is gold.
Yeah.
You're spitting fire.
No, it wasn't that good. No. All right. Well, how about names and attributes of God? Did you think about that at all this week?
I have been thinking about that a lot, actually,
Yeah.
over the last couple days. I did what every good person in full-time ministry does, and I Googled it. I like to try to slip that into my messages. I'm like everyone, I Googled it. And my students are always like, should we be listening to her? And I'm like, ha. Yeah, you should be listening to me.
Yeah.
Okay, so I found one that I actually hadn't heard before.
Okay.
But I really liked it. And let me see if I'm just gonna move you over for a second so that I can access mine.
It's fine. I won't be offended.
You're not offended by me moving you over.
I can't even tell from my screen. Like, you still look like you're looking at me.
Oh. So I like this one the best. Yahweh Mekadesh, the Lord who sanctifies and makes holy. I am I'm entering a season of sanctification in a way that I'm like less than excited about. Let me explain. I have just really felt like it's been like this past season was just really great. But I really felt like the Lord was saying, okay, Laura, if we're going to move forward, it's like, if we're like for the next thing in life, like we need to deal with some stuff because you've got some stuff that you've just let fester and that you've just let exist in you. And this is where I'm taking you, but if this is where I'm going to take you, like we've got to deal with this first. And that is, I don't know if anyone else has ever experienced that, but it's a scary. There's a lot of I guess there's a lot of unknowns in that, and so there's a piece of it that's like I'm really excited because I trust God, and then there's a piece of it that's like I don't know where He's taking me, and I don't know. I know it's going to be a painful walk through this stuff, and so do I trust God enough in that? So anyway, so these are some of the things that have been like percolating. But I like that idea of the Lord who sanctifies because it's not me who pulls myself up, like it's the Lord who does the work in me. And so that's my word, Yahweh Mekadesh, the Lord who sanctifies or makes holy. And then my word, so then for context, the three parts of this are characteristics of God, name of God, my word that I'm claiming for the year, or like clinging to for the year, and then a verse that goes with that. Mm-hmm. So my word that I've chosen is one that has chosen me walking into this season. And I feel like I'm cheating a little bit because this has been my word for the last like a month or two. But I feel like it's this season, whether it's this date or not, this is the season. If that makes sense?
Yeah, totally.
And the word is surrender.
Nice.
full surrender, full submission, full send has kind of like been the phrase that's been like tumbling around my brain these last couple months. So surrender. And then like if I'm gonna walk in sanctification, like I have to be surrendered. So that's sort of those two things go hand in glove. And then the Philippians 2:13, that it is him, God who works in us to will and to work for his glory. So that is the verse, Philippians 2:13. 13.
That's
so
nice.
Those are my three.
I kind of like that better. Actually, I've been thinking and talking with Felipe. Obviously, I talked to Felipe about everything.
I hope so.
I know, weird, right? And I feel that too many times I've seen people want to like name and claim something for the future, for some kind of prosperity, whether it's a spiritual prosperity or wealth or earthly, whatever. And to kind of flip this idea on the head, kind of, I haven't articulated it yet, so I feel like I'm stumbling over my words, but like reflect on the past year and say, what was the lesson God has been trying to teach me over the past year? And then how can I apply that going forward? Yeah. So I really liked hearing you say like, well, it's been kind of the past couple of months. I was like, yes, exactly. Like God's not like, okay, last chapter is over December 31st, new chapter January 1, because he always works on our timetable. Like that seems silly. So being able to look back at 2021 and say, this is a character flaw that kept coming up over and over again. It takes a lot of introspection that is uncomfortable. So not a lot of people will do that because it's so uncomfortable. And that's why we have counselors and psychiatrists to help us get through that uncomfortable weeds and be able to look back and say, this is what I kept struggling with. Let's maybe not wait until January 1st. You know, any time there's something good to do, it's good to just start right away, even if it was 2 months ago, like what you said.
Plug for counseling.
Yeah.
My counselor's name is Michelle. She's fantastic.
Nice. Very nice. Yeah, so that's good. I noticed that in the past year, actually in my past lifetime, that, and I shared this with you before, that I just kind of enjoy pointing out people's hypocrisy and get kind of a sadistic pleasure out of just being like, you're such a hypocrite, let me point it out to you. And then like not even caring like what they do with it, like just pointing out how you messed up. Don't really care if you change or not. See ya. And I'm like, that just doesn't seem very kind. That doesn't seem loving. Maybe stop doing that. What did you say?
Or Christ-like at all.
At all. Yeah, it's like, why? Why say anything then? And so I have stopped pointing out people's hypocrisies, but I will say, like, I don't mind people pointing out mine because I am open to that. But if other people aren't open to that, then it's not accomplishing anything. And I've had people be able to come and talk to me on a personal note, and then at that point have them ask and say, well, here's where I see some discrepancies in your life. And that type of discussion is very kind, is very loving. It is a very gentle way of pointing someone towards Christ. And so going forward into 2022, I don't really have a word. I guess maybe love or action is like the word. But the idea behind it is to love your neighbor as yourself. And that's it. That's all I've got is. So I guess my word would be love. Just be loving.
So what attribute of God then
is love? Not I would say love of God. Like God's love for me and for other people is compelling me to want to emulate that.
For other people.
So yeah, that's that. Maybe it doesn't completely fit the assignment, But that's what
I
I've
think
got.
I think it totally does.
Yeah, I like it. I like it because it's going to be hard, and not that everything that's hard is character developing, but in this instance it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
Right. Yeah. So, did you do your homework for D group? Any of it? I did not.
I did the weekly challenge.
That was part of it. I did the whole assignment like months ago when I was preparing it for everyone else. So I usually go over everything again, but
You lead the D group?
I do lead a D group. Yes. Yeah. It's a great group. I love it. It's at 6 a.m. though, so not a lot of people want to join. But I figured that's how I've always found like the creme de la creme is to make your Bible study at some god awful hour. And then people who are serious show up, or people who are overseas and it's in the middle of the day for them. So it's the only one that's available. But they end up being pretty awesome as well. So that was a joke. That was just being silly. But yes.
All right.
In college, I had a Bible study that met at 5 a.m. on campus. And we're like, okay, we got to do this before classes start, because classes started at 7. So we needed to get the Bible study in before classes started.
I would not have shown up for that.
No, only 2 other people did. So it was just me and 2 other people, and it was
awesome. Are you like conscious at that time?
Yeah. Yeah. Also, I just didn't sleep, so it was fine. I would sleep here or there. Like, it was really bad. It was bad because I think people need more sleep than that. I
love sleep.
No, I didn't start loving sleep until I started having kids. And then my body was like, you need to go to sleep. You need to sleep more. But until I started having kids, I would sleep like 3 or 4 hours a night, and that was good. I was fine. Yeah, yeah.
I'm like a solid 8 to 10 hours a night.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. That's a lot. That's a lot of sleep.
This is what I'm saying. I was like 6 o'clock in the morning. I don't see 6 o'clock in the
morning. That's crazy. That's a lot of sleeping. But you gotta do what your body needs.
I do what my body needs, and I don't have tiny human people depending on me for life. I just have a dog, and he sleeps. He loves sleep more than I do. He sleeps just as much, if not more. Very impressive.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of this goes back to some bad hermeneutics reading Proverbs 31 as a teenager, where this woman woke up before everyone else and stayed up later than everyone else. And I was like, oh, let me do this unattainable goal. And then my body just got used to it. So
yeah, I've had some people try to convince me that you're not a good leader unless you get up early.
How are they related? How is that?
That like legit. I never could get behind that argument, but they were like, no, like good leaders get up and get their day started, and blah, blah, blah. I'm like,
okay,
all right. Mm-hmm. I'm a bad leader then, and I don't intend to change.
Well, there you go. After I started reading Proverbs 31 more and more, I think I've told you this before, I decided like this can't be something we interpret literally, because I forget which verse, but it says that the lady has servants. So can't be for, you have to have a certain level of income to have employees and servants.
To be a Proverbs 31 woman, you have to have a certain level of income.
Right. Some interpretations say slave, some says like servants. We could say, well, employees. I don't have employees, so it must not be applicable to me. That's it. Can't be.
But for the public record, you have referred to me as your servant.
Yeah, you
So-
are. That was funny. Yes.
I'm a fellow, but that does not make me. I mean, I'm a servant of Jesus, but I'm not a
But
servant
I'm
of
not
Flo.
Jesus. No, that's just a joke. Just joking.
But you know what? You know what? If it makes you a Proverbs 31 woman, I'm happy to be your servant.
Yeah, I just think like there's so much emphasis on people or from people on women to be this Proverbs 31 woman, but they've never actually studied what those words mean because they're not doing them. And I get in my newsfeed every once in a while there's a bunch of ministries called Proverbs 31 Women or Women of Proverbs 31. Like they're all derivations of that. And so I'm not picking on any one of them specifically, but they all have this theme. I'm picking on all of them equally to say, like, you can't, like, I don't think you've read that chapter because it's unattainable. It's completely unattainable.
I was gifted for Christmas a pair of socks that is
that's right.
clothed in whatever.
Yeah.
We had a good laugh.
Yes, that was funny. But yeah, it's just like calm down is what I would tell a lot of people. Like don't be a Proverbs 31 woman. You don't need to do that to yourself. But I mean, we can't. What is pretty comical to me are the diehard complementarians who are like, "Oh, Proverbs 31 woman," and I'm like, that man that's in Proverbs 31 looks up to his wife, follows her lead, and does what she says. So are we really following this? Like, that's why I think the people who are so diehard 31 are not as diehard like they don't go together very well. So it's just kind of confusing. I don't think they've read the chapter. That's all I'm saying. But
that's all I'm trying to say.
That's all I'm saying. And like they're welcome. Really? And I feel like I'm getting really dangerously close to like pointing out the hypocrisy without caring whether or not they follow it or not. And I'm just saying, for me, that's why I haven't jumped on board with all of the Proverb 31 women stuff, where a lot of people have asked me like, why haven't you like joined this ministry? And I'm like, it's just not for me, and you have to be married to be a Proverbs 31 woman. So if you're not married, just forget about it. It's not for you. Right? Yeah.
Not for me.
That's all. Also, like, what about the servants? Are they not allowed to be Proverbs 31 women? So, like, only the person they're serving is allowed to be the Proverbs 31 woman, and they're screwed. Sorry, not for you. So it's just problematic to say that it is some sort of life verse, chapter, passage. Oh my God. I don't know about that. Anyway, I don't know how we got off on that little tangent.
I don't know. I don't know either. It's easy. It's not hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
I had a friend that had a post about Jeremiah 29:11 on her Facebook and how it's her life verse, and I almost sent her a message and I was like, "Hey, can we talk about this?" But I didn't.
Yeah.
I did not see.
I once had a post that I put on about the Philippians 4:13 that everyone always takes out of context.
You can do all things.
I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
You can win sports games.
I can lift this house by myself with my two hands, just lift it off the ground, because Christ gives me the strength. And of course, we all know that's ridiculous. You can't do that. You're not going to do that no matter how much faith you have. It's just not going to happen. So why is God lying then in the Bible? Why would he put that there? And if you read it in context, what Paul is saying is, I've had a lot of money. I've had a little bit of money. But I know that the secret to whatever amount of money I have, whatever amount of success I have, the secret is being content in Christ. Because I can do all of these things, whether it's wealth, prosperity, or poverty in jail. It's only through Christ's strength that I'm able to deal with life.
Right.
And once
and
you
honor
have,
him in any way through it.
right, and the number of people who are like, well, I've never heard that before. I'm like, well, that's because our pastors are failing us. That's why, like, not all of our pastors, but I mean, just in general, we need pastors to point us towards truth. And if they're not doing that, then what are they doing? They're pointing us to other truths. They probably just haven't gotten around to that one yet. But yeah, I wish we had more good teaching, more solid teaching. Whenever I see these cliched Bible verses on mugs and on people's walls.
Oh, that's what I should have put on your mug.
Oh, yeah.
I should have put a verse on it.
Laura gave me a mug that has her picture on it that says world's greatest grandpa, or I put the great and great grandpa, something like that.
Says you put the great and great grandpa.
Hilarious. I love it. I love it so much. It is great. Yeah. All right. So if you haven't already, listen to the podcast for this week. It is Fred Sanders out in Biola. He is not at Biola, but he was giving a guest lecture at Biola, and I thought it was phenomenal. Yes. Yeah, I think I shared it with you. There's a fly in my room here. Sorry about that.
You know what's the great part about being in Minnesota where it's negative 20 degrees?
All of the bugs are dead. Yeah. Yes. Well, I am like sweating right now. It is so hot. It's hot in this room, but I think it is in the 30s outside, which I think is a lovely temperature. I think 30 is great. But all of my southern friends will probably think I'm crazy. That's okay. They probably thought I was crazy before this.
Hey, it's 29 degrees here today. Yesterday was negative 20, and right now it's 29. We're almost the same, except for I have snow outside on the ground.
Well, that is almost a 50-degree change.
Yes. Yes, it is.
That's insane.
Yes,
that is crazy. That is crazy. Well, I am reading this book right now called The Mystery of the Trinity, a Trinitarian Approach to the Attributes of God. So
okay.
I don't know if that...
Nope, it's
my blurring there.
Mm-hmm.
Is it
of the Trinity.
Is it mirrored for you?
No.
Vern Poitras, I think that's how you say his name. I've only ever seen it written down. But a foreword by Sinclair Ferguson. So
I just got a text from a friend of mine while we're talking here. Who was in my D group.
Oh, good.
And you just said something about the podcast, and she literally just texted me about the podcast.
Good stuff, or like, what is this?
She said, the beginning of this podcast is full of theology words that I have no idea what he's talking about.
Yeah. I mean, this is at Biola. It's a lecture to seminary students. And that is why I made it
she's laughing at the lingo.
Yeah. I thought that might happen, but that's why I made it an extra podcast instead of one of the ones that is required listening, because of how thick this podcast is. I say podcast, but it's just a lecture. It's not like a podcast meant for great distribution. But I liked it. I thought it was phenomenal. So hopefully, that is true. We have, well, if she has questions, she can ask you.
As a years later, I'm happy to answer. She'll figure it out. If he explains himself.
Yeah, it's a good lecture. He's a good guy.
It's a great lecture.
Yeah.
It just made me laugh because she was literally just texting me about it while we're talking about it. It like popped up on my screen.
So this book is interesting. I decided to start reading it because we're going through Trinity study right now.
Yep.
And it's so thick. This thick book. I've only gotten to page 103 out of, I think, 600 pages. So I don't think I'm going to finish it anytime soon. But it's very interesting.
This one.
That one is much more accessible, delighting in the Trinity, an introduction to the Christian faith. What's that guy's name?
It says that, but Michael Reeves.
Yeah, I didn't really see how it was an introduction to the Christian faith.
I mean, except for the reality that
Right.
if you really want to understand the concept of being a part of, like, stepping
Right.
into what God has done and who He is, helping understand who He is helpful to that.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, the roles of the Trinity.
So yeah, I felt like that was a good book too. That is a good book. This one is interesting. It described God as simple, and that led into a great discussion with my husband. Now, this guy is reformed, very reformed, like die-hard reformed. And so I am not, but you can still read things from people who you have disagreements with and learn a lot.
Right.
And so he says that God is simple, and what that means is he can't be divided into parts. So a complex God would be, you'd be able to say, well, here's 1/3 of God, let's cut them up, and here's 1/8 of God, and this attribute is able to be separated from this attribute. But really, what we see in Scripture is like the fruit of the Spirit. It's not that you can just have one part of the fruit of the Spirit, but that all of those 9 words go to describe one fruit of the Spirit. So it's love, it's joy, it's peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control are all one that you have. And you can encounter any situation where you find you're lacking patience. In my case, I would be lacking patience. And I would look at myself and say, okay, I'm not just lacking patience in this scenario. I am also not loving whoever it is I'm being impatient with. I have no joy in this situation. And you can go through and see how it's all there. It's what I'm witnessing is impatience, but it's the whole thing that I don't have. I'm lacking self control, and I'm not
Fruits of
being
the Spirit in general.
just, it's all together. So that is indicative of who God is in general, also. Like, He is not loving in this situation and merciful in this situation and gentle in this situation. He is all of it in every situation. So it was really interesting to read that. I've never heard God described as simple. And when I first read that, I was like, that sounds kind of insulting. And he was like, but wait, let me explain. And I was like, okay, I'll let you explain, because I did buy this book. So let me read what you have to say. And so anyway, it's just really interesting. A lot of it has study questions at the back, and so I've enjoyed it so far. Yeah. So yeah, great little book there. That is what I am reading right now.
I love that. I am not currently reading anything. I have 3 books sitting next to me that I need to be reading, or not need, that's strong, that I want to read. One of them is Jasmine Holmes' Carved in Ebony. Have you heard of this book?
No.
It is inspiration from the lives of 10 women, 10 Black women of faith.
Oh, very
so
cool.
She looks at these different women throughout history who are Black women who impacted faith in a big way, and is really awesome. She also wrote a book that I really liked called Letters to My Son.
Yes, I've heard of that one.
Or Mother to Son, Letters to a Black Boy on Identity and Hope. And I really enjoyed it. There are people in the Reform world that aren't a huge fan of hers because she has very different.
Because she's not diehard Reformed, yeah.
Well, her dad is like
diehard, yes.
Diehard. And so there are some people that are like, they try to create beef between her and her dad, and there is no beef between her and her dad. So
that's always so silly.
So that is one that I'm It's like on my, I need, like it literally sits next to me on my couch every day while I watch TV.
And just
And
for
then,
anyone listening, her dad is Vadi Busham, just by the way.
yes. And then I got this one from Crossway, Rediscover Church.
Interesting.
It came from Crossway and TGC and Nine Marks, and so I'm like, okay, I'll take a look at that. I have not read it yet. It's a quick read. Seems pretty simple. So I'm looking forward to it, but like
Nice.
just trying to get back to the core of like what is church and why church, which leads us to our next question about church.
You mean just the question that I had asked you
Yeah,
before?
you had asked a question about
Yeah,
church.
how was
So.
church on Sunday? Did you like it? Was it enjoyable? Was it convicting? Was it encouraging?
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna answer quickly, and then I'm gonna let you answer because I'm more curious about your answer. I have COVID or had COVID, and so I did not go to church. But I'm gonna start with I love my church. I love my church. I'm on staff at my church. I've been on staff for almost 8 years. I've been a member of my church for almost 11 years. Um, I love my church. My church has a commitment to preaching the truth of God's word. So my senior pastor, most of the time, is teaching just exegetically through a book of the Bible most of the time. He just did a series on Jonah this past summer. It was like so good, like so good. He's right now in Judges. Like, who does that? Like, who does Judges? He took like 4 years to go through Matthew. And then we as a ministry staff team, so anyone who's like licensed ministry staff that's on staff, every other Monday, the first meeting of the day, 8:45 every other Monday, twice a month, we do a 2 hour study together.
Nice.
So we study as a staff team. We're studying through right now the book of John, and we take it in like five to 10 verses. Like it's really short chunks, and we do a full like deep dive on it. And it's my favorite meeting all month. Or those two meetings are my favorite meeting all month because as a staff team we just really dig into scripture together, and so not only is it something that we get from Sunday morning from the pulpit, but it's something that we as a staff team do twice a month together as a whole. There's probably 25, 30 people in that room, and like we all take those 2 hours twice a month to get in the word together in a really deep way, and so that's been, and I've been in that meeting for the last 8 years, so that's so fun. We've done a bunch of different books of the Bible and just take it really slow until we get through them, and so my church has a huge priority on the centrality of the word. And my senior pastor, like, he brings the heat. He's not afraid to offend people with truth.
Yeah.
He doesn't say offensive things if they're not in scripture. He doesn't. He really doesn't even normally comment on things that are happening culturally, which sometimes it's like, hey, we should probably be talking about this. And then sometimes it's like, no, it's like, yeah, that's happening, but like what's more important right now is the Bible. And he does occasionally, like, not that he never addresses things that are happening culturally. Like, I live near Minneapolis, and we had the whole everything that happened this last year, 2 years ago. And so he obviously made some statements around that. But again, just more from a shepherding standpoint, to shepherd the congregation in that. But he's like, okay, I'm going to address it, but I'm not going to this is what we're doing in scripture right now. So I really appreciate it. I love my church. my favorite thing about church, even though I love that element, my favorite thing right now about church is worship. So I have, I'm good friends with some of the women that are on the platform every week doing worship. And so it's fun because like I know the hearts of these women who are leading us in worship. One of them is just one of my dearest friends, and her husband is our worship pastor, and so she leads with him almost every week. And then there's another gal who's my buddy as well. And I love the way they select worship. I love the way they do worship. Some people feel like worship done on a big stage with lights is showy and like concerty, and I think it can be that way. But I think just like anything, worship is about how we approach it, where our hearts are at in approaching it. And I know the hearts of the people on stage. And I am just as comfortable worshiping with a hymnal as I am worshiping in a big auditorium with lights and, loud. But I have loved it. It has been so, so, so good. So like, even if I'm traveling, I'll like catch worship. Like I'll watch it on my iPad or my iPhone or whatever. And like this week I did watch worship. I did not watch the sermon, full confession. And I hope he never sees this, but our senior pastor wasn't preaching, someone else was. So I was like, oh, Julia.
There, she's my squishy. She just wants a snack. Yes.
Mom, I need food.
It's my...
Everyone that helps me with that.
Hey,
So
baby.
that's, I told you I was going to answer that quickly and answer it quickly.
Right.
I answered it long, but
okay.
there it is. I love my church. I absolutely love my church. And if there are people that are like, I don't have a church right now, Grace.church. Super easy. Grace.church. We have a larger online attendance than we do in person attendance.
Right. Has it always been like that, or has COVID kicked that?
COVID. Yeah, we've literally like doubled in size because of online attendees because of COVID. So we're actually higher right now than pre-COVID numbers in person, but then our online presence is also doubled. So it's like we have like 20,000 people as a part of our church now, which is like not big for like a Texas church, but for a Minnesota church.
Yeah. So that's like the entire population of Minnesota. I'm just joking.
Oh,
I'm just joking.
We are not a small. We're
such a lame
mighty.
joke. That was such a stupid joke.
But we are a big church. But it's a great church, and most people are like, "Oh, mega churches, blah blah blah," and I'm like,
yeah.
I am a part of a mega church that preaches the gospel.
Right.
And I'm so happy about that.
Well, that's good. I think the problem that I've had in mega churches is lack of community. So you think like, oh, there's so many people, surely you would be able to find community. But I had one church tell me that because I couldn't pay for a babysitter, that this must be a season of not fellowshipping with other people. And I was like, I don't think that is a thing. I don't think that's a thing. So, just for instance, that's a story, a little anecdote from a mega church, and it didn't sit well with me.
And don't get me wrong, I'm sure people have had bad experiences with
right.
church. I'm sure they have.
Right.
But I mean that we're gonna have bad experiences. Everyone's gonna have a bad experience with any church because churches are made of these people.
Right.
But I finally joined a small group at my church, like a women's small group for the first time in my life this year. And I don't know who has, and this is out for the whole world, so I'm gonna not make all of my statements here, but I have found a couple of girls in that group that I really, really love.
Yeah.
That I have become really good friends with. That it's fun because now I like have friends that live in my same state because most of my friends don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry.
I know.
So our church.
I told my sister, I'm like, oh, I made a new friend. And like, do they live in the state? And I'm like, no. Yes, your church.
My church.
Tell me about your church experience in this country.
You know, my church experience since like April 2020 has been really difficult. We had, after our megachurch debacle, we had another megachurch debacle, and started going to this super small church that we loved. We loved it. Went there for like a solid year. It was great. COVID hit, and they had some technical difficulties, so we couldn't really watch online. And they eventually started coming back in person. Since it's a small group, it really wasn't that big of a deal. But we didn't feel comfortable going back because of our kids who don't know personal space, stuff like that. So we were like, let's like not let the kids enter into that. And so we'd watch other churches online.
That's part of the reason why I want to come visit you so badly.
Yeah. Why?
I just want to wrestle. I want to wrestle your children.
Yeah.
Like I want to just like throw them around the room.
They would love that. They luckily there's a lot of them, so they're not lonely. But I feel like they need some diversity in their fellowship and their friendships.
They need more than just you are basically a house church.
Yeah. I mean, like, we bring the party with us everywhere we go. Yeah. So
where 9 or more are gathered.
Yeah, right. So our church met in person for a while there, and then recently they just closed their doors and they shut down. And so since we're moving in just a couple of months, we were faced with like, well, do we find another church? Like, how can we even do that with any kind of decency before just moving anyway? So anyway, in this whole time, I've been virtually attending Epiphany Brooklyn, which is back in my roots, although I never went to that church when I was in New York. I don't even know how I found this church. I think it just appeared in my newsfeed one day, and I was like, yes, let me just see what this is. And I've really liked it. They are affiliated with Eric Mason, and so I was like, well, you know, I'm not a huge Eric Mason fan, but like, I don't think he's not a Christian. I don't think
You're not a huge Eric Mason fan?
No, I think he is really super conservative. And I'm not that conservative.
Did you choose the book?
I did not. I had nothing to do with choosing that book for D group. That was done before my time. So yeah, I mean, the book was fine. And there were just a lot of times that I was like, well, that's a very conservative thing to say. And it's fine. It's fine because I have a lot of friends who are super more conservative than me. And that's fine. I still recognize that
that's
Christ
fine.
is
you sound like
moving
friends.
in.
It's fine.
It's fine. But I like Eric Mason. I'm just I find that a lot of his messages are very conservative, which is always humorous to me when people start complaining about how liberal he is. I was like, are we talking about the same person? What? No, he is not liberal. He's very conservative.
No. He's not liberal. He's black.
Right? Well, that doesn't mean the same thing. Yeah, so I have encountered a lot of that conversation, as you know. And anyway, so going to Epiphany Brooklyn has been great, except that it's in Brooklyn and I am in Dallas, so it's not much.
Do you watch it with your whole fam? Like you get
I don't make them all sit down, but they catch bits of it as they are going about their day, and I will sit down and watch the whole thing, but they will not. They will.
What's your favorite worship style?
Worship style?
Yeah.
I have no idea. What does that even mean? What's worship style?
You enjoy like a Maverick City music or like a Shane and Shane or like hymns or orchestra or like a little more, upbeat.
That's really tricky because I'm not a big music person, just in
Really?
general.
So like worship isn't that's not like a good draw for you.
Right. Like if it can be well done, then yeah, I'll like it. But I guess maybe I'm like really picky, maybe is what is going on there. I do not like Shane and Shane. Like I can't listen to Shane and Shane. And then a lot of just CCM in general, like contemporary Christian music, is just very whiny. And so it's really hard to get over that and be able to worship because it's like such a distraction to listen to.
Have you listened to Maverick City music?
No, I don't think I have. There's one group out of Ireland that I really like. What is his name?
Keith and Kristen Getty.
No.
What?
I feel like you've mentioned them before, but I still have never heard them.
They wrote the song. You know some of their music for them.
I gotta look up this guy's.
You would know Keith and Kristen Getty because they wrote In Christ Alone.
They wrote that song?
Yeah, most people think the song In Christ Alone is really, really old. It's not.
I did not think that it was really old. I remember when it came out. I just didn't remember.
Yes, the Gettys. They're Northern Irish.
Well, that's fun. So my great-grandfather is from Northern Ireland.
Which makes sense because you have a daughter
named Saoirse, yeah.
Named Saoirse. But it's the way it's spelled, you would not have any idea that that's her name.
It is very Gaelic. Very Gaelic.
Very Gaelic.
Yes.
And her middle name, I was just looking at wherever you had posted that picture of her and her middle name. Oh,
yeah. Galadriel, but that's from Lord of the Rings.
Galadriel is her middle name?
Yes, Saoirse Galadriel.
That's how to say that?
Yes.
Saoirse Galadriel.
Are you not a Lord of the Rings fan? Obviously, you're not.
I'm not a fan. Did I just flush our friendship?
No, you didn't.
It's the fantasy world doesn't do much for me.
But you like a lot of those Marvel movies. That's very actiony. A lot of it is
but it's
close to fantasy.
It's more style. I mean, it's different. I feel like Lord of the Rings and Star Wars are two very different genres. Or Marvel and like that world.
Okay, it's called Reawaken Hymns. That is who I enjoy very much listening to.
Reawaken?
Very easy to listen to, very soothing voice, well made, real heart for Christ. Very, very nice, very well made.
So you're not musical?
I'm not. I grew up playing piano and violin, and I just didn't like songs with words in them, though. I like instrumental, not necessarily classical music, but just instrumental. So it can be like hip hop and R&B, but without words, and I really enjoy that. But once we start introducing words as a voice in the orchestration, then it starts bothering me. And I think it's because I have trouble. I was going to say it's because I have trouble remembering words to the lyrics to songs, and so it like gets stuck in my head, but with not the right words at all, and it's just it's really frustrating.
I turn on the classical for concentration station on Apple Music, and it is so good. I don't. Do you do Apple Music or do you do Spotify or
I do
none
YouTube
none of the
music.
above? So
I like the lo-fi hip hop stations that I have found on YouTube, and they are great.
yes, the classical for concentration on Apple Music is my jam.
Nice.
My jam.
Nice.
Yeah.
I recently listened to Metallica Lullabies. That was really fun. It
I was
was
gonna say
just,
that's fantastic.
you know, no words, but all of their songs just instrumental in a lullaby type fashion. And I was like, this is amazing. Like, how do people come up with this stuff? It's so good, so talented. So anyway, that's a long story about how I don't really have a worship style.
Just as long as it's not distracting. That's your
right. I really like having instrumental music going on, and then just the words read. Like, not necessarily spoken word, but just
scripture being
read over. But I do like spoken word also. But yeah, it's just really peaceful to me. I really enjoy that. It doesn't have a beat and a rhythm. The music does, but the speaking doesn't. But the speaking can as well. But just when it gets added to the orchestration of the music is when I don't like it anymore. And I don't know why. I don't know why that is.
I have dinner soon.
Oh, okay. Do you have any questions for me?
I mean, I have so many questions for you, but I haven't decided where I want to send. I want to send. I feel like we should end our time with like the same question every time.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't think of like what a good.
I have a good one. Where have you been wrong this week?
Wow. Where have I been wrong?
What have you been wrong about?
I have been wrong about my perception of who I am as a person. I have allowed my mind and my insecurities and my stuff to tell me things about myself that aren't true. And I have not extended myself the kind of grace that I need to be in order to process and handle this journey of sanctification well.
It's good stuff.
I'm super good at extending grace to others. So like someone's like, hey, I'm struggling with this, like even if it's something big, I'm like, I'm here for you, and I pray for you, whatever. But then like I'm struggling, and I'm like, wow, you are terrible and have no value or worth, and no one will like you if you tell anyone that. So
yeah,
it's like that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's wrong.
Yeah. That's a great answer. All right, well, that's it. Bye.
Burger.
Yeah, well, you would think like since I had that question like ready to go, I would have an answer ready to go, but I don't. So I'm going to have to think about it for a second. I think what readily comes to mind though is I have been wrong in how I responded to my children misbehaving and thinking that a harsh word would correct the situation when we literally have Bible verses that say that's not the case.
That's not the case. Yeah.
In fact, that's the exact opposite of what I should do. Now, luckily, it is a harsh word. It's like not crazy breaking things, or like I don't know what crazy parents do, but just wanting to treat my children the way I would want to be treated. So they are my neighbors as well. So loving others as I would have them love me, and that they are included in that. My husband is included in that. That is one way that I've been wrong. And another big way, which Beth Moore pointed out to me in a book that she wrote, was that people aren't more loved by God than others, and He doesn't play favorites. So the person on stage is not more favored than the person who has 7 kids and a husband and doesn't do much else. And so it's actually kind of insulting to think like my kids aren't a huge ministry, and to say like, oh, I wish, and not that I have ever said, oh, I wish I had some big platform, but that the thought of the big platform is more important than my non-platform. I have a platform. It's 7 kids, and that's huge.
A serious platform.
So that was something wrong that she pointed out to me, that I was like, oh, how about that? Yeah, that was a wrong thought. So both of my wrong thinking centered around my kids, and just try to do better and treat them like the human images of God that they are. So that's where I was wrong. Yeah.
Word.
Yep. All right, let's wrap this up because we have lives that we do need to get back to. So go watch a Sidney Poitier movie.
My niece is in town, so I'm gonna
watch it with her. No, I'm not telling you what to do. I don't have plans for your life.
You do.